One. Hey guys, it's Ruben from Dub's podcast Connection Loop, and I'm with Chantel in the virtual interwebs, and we got some topics to get into here that are, I think, relevant for most of us, for in fact all of us, and we want to get into this idea of turning weaknesses, turning threats, turning misfortunes into opportunities, and in fact, turning them into our superpowers and unleashing us. So, Chantel, please give us a bio of yourself and let's get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for chatting with me. So my story kind of transformed a few years ago. I just had a baby and I was unemployed, and the stress ate away at my immune system. I lost my vision, my ability to walk, my ability to hear, and really was shook up by my health. Uninsured, which is the worst in terms of not having health insurance in the US, but it all came down to a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. And then I had to apply for jobs with a disability because I couldn't see very well and I couldn't walk very well and all these other things. So I realized firsthand how many obstacles there are in the job application process, but also how many obstacles there are with unconscious bias in, having people trust me design their work or with their brand strategy because I can't see out of one eye and all these other things. So that's a little bit about me and how I got started. I transformed my business around just really working for myself and empowering myself, which then I went from unemployable to completely sought after professional because of the way I was able to turn my chronic illness and disability into superpowers or magic. And that's why a lot of people call me the brand sorceress. You'll see that in my LinkedIn title because marketing magic is real. Like you can really do a lot with messaging and marketing. So yeah, that's a little bit a brief synopsis.
So this positivity that I sense from you, this general vibe that I get from you is that nothing can stop you. I mean, you might run into something and it's a fork in the road, and then you just simply turn that into an opportunity. There's this old proverb, this Chinese proverb, which is actually totally misinterpreted, which is that a crisis is an opportunity. And in fact, that symbol, that Chinese symbol of crisis does not mean opportunity, but there's a whole lot of optimists that have interpreted that and made most people to believe that. But in fact, it's not the case. But since we want it to be true, it is true in that truly crisis is an opportunity, and how can we get into that mindset and truly make ourselves believe in this? One of the topics that I'm always interested in is this idea of rewiring our minds. It's neuroplasticity, where
yes.
if we can rewire our brains to be into the positive realm and be focused on our path, then actually the chances of us attaining that are much higher. What is your take on all of this?
Oh my gosh, that's literally how I recovered, was studying neuroplasticity and neuroscience and how you can just be more grateful. Gratitude is everything. Attitude is everything. An attitude of gratitude, that's a winning combination. So when I was able to take every single negative thought that passed through my brain, like, nobody wants me because I wasn't getting any calls back, I would change that into, hey, this is an adventure. I'm going to find the right thing. The right thing's going to come to me, and just staying positive. And that's irritating, especially when you realize that, it's good. It's good to have bad days. It's good to feel pain. It's good to cry. It's good to feel your emotions and just lean into that so that you can grow forward. So absolutely. I think the biggest thing that goes forward or hand in hand with neuroplasticity or a mindset reset is diet. And I it's easy to practice or preach, but it's harder to practice what you preach. And really focusing in on those brain health diets will help amplify that strategy, amplify that success, so that your reframing your mind will help it become more habitual. Yes.
Okay. That was hard. That was very hard to spell. So what? Give us kind of what have you learned? What is it that we can kind of take away What can we start doing tomorrow that's in a very accessible way? This is a little bit of an intimidating topic.
Yeah. Well, first, understanding that grieving is totally normal and you can grieve in other ways. You don't have to grieve just for the lost loved one. You can grieve for losing a career. You can grieve for, not being as healthy as you used to be. You can grieve for aging even, it's easy to accept that and move forward, but grieving is a very, very important process in terms of awareness, accepting, and moving forward. So that's number one. And number two is just, keep that positive mindset, work on that attitude, because attitude will get you through anything. It's a make or break. If you don't have a good attitude, you're going to break. If you have a great one, you're going to make. So definitely choose to make.
That's simple. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Right?
So what are some things that you might recommend in those moments, in those challenging moments that we have? One of the things that I do is I count backwards sometimes. If I'm in a moment and I don't want my reptilian brain to react in a survival instinct, I want to be much more logical about it. I want to tap into my limbic system. I just count backwards, and that forces me to not respond in a survival-based manner. What are some suggestions that you might have for us?
Yeah, breathe. It's easy to forget that we need to breathe. We tend to store up all this tension and our breathing gets shallow. And I'm not a life coach, and I used to think that yoga was for woo-woo granola moms, and I didn't want that to blend into that cliche, but it really is magnificent. And so I even teach that to my son. You mentioned that you have a 7-year-old little boy. I have a 6-year-old little boy. And when they're ready to have temper tantrums, the whole world better watch out, because it will stop things. So we talk about blowing trouble bubbles because it helps him blow, like breathe deep and blow his troubles away. Just like releasing that bad energy and getting ready for the good stuff.
Trouble bubbles.
Trouble bubbles. Adults, pay attention. We could all learn from this.
That's kind of cool. What we're doing in that way is we're kind of gamifying and making it fun to just breathe, get the oxygen, take that moment, tap into our limbic systems, make those smarter choices in real time so that we don't have a tantrum. Does that apply to kids? Yes. Does it apply to adults? Yes.
Absolutely.
I love that. I think the difference between kids and adults is that kids, they're not as tainted as adults. They haven't gone through the failures that we have, and they haven't gone through the trials and the tribulations and all the horrific things that life has for us sometimes. They're much more innocent, and I think that there's something that we can learn from kids. And I think that kids can learn something from us. And I think that I'm constantly I've realized myself constantly learning from my kid because of my 2 kids, actually, because of their innocence, and their vulnerability. And that's something I talk about a lot.
Heck yeah. There's so much that you can learn from them. And that's kind of what got me through my diagnosis and into full recovery, is being able to relive that magic of curiosity, that magic of vulnerability, and being okay, not being okay. Because I think as a human species, we're so, I don't know, we're held to this thing that we really need to just be strong all the time. But nobody's strong all the time unless you're a robot. So be vulnerable, embrace it.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of robots, my favorite new robot character is from Bill and Ted's Face the Music.
Oh, jeez.
The robot character is so funny because he's this superhuman and flawed and like insecure robot that's just constantly worrying about failing. And it's so funny. The writers were so smart about it because they show all these human characteristics in a robot, which would never take place. And most of them come from his fear of failure. And because he's so afraid to fail, he just messes up all the time. And he basically just screws up.
Truth. It's like the robot on Futurama, right? Like, talk about flawed. I love it. He's my favorite.
Right. Well, HAL 2000, I think maybe was one of the pioneers. Yeah. So, speaking of this idea of, fearing of failure and that resulting in failure, can you speak to that? How can we avoid that? It's like when I ride my bike and I'm on a skinny little single track trail somewhere up in the mountains here. And if I start to look this way, or if I start to look this way, my body goes that way. And I might fall off the trail and I might lose my balance and hurt myself. But if I stay on my trail and I look exactly where I want to go, my chances of actually staying on the bike are much higher. Please speak to this idea of, speaking things into fruition and focusing on success and having this positive mindset.
Failure is the biggest blessing of all, I think. Having, like you said, crisis is a gift. And it's not easy to think that way when you're running through the trenches all full of mud, but it's easier to look at it in hindsight. And when I think about how I've gotten to where I am today, so for example, when I first launched my business, I had over $1 million in revenue generating opportunities come through in the first 3 months, which is huge for me, especially as somebody who had, $200,000 in medical debt and could hardly make ends meet. So being able to accept the fact that you are worth it, despite your flaws, despite the last pieces of failure that you've overcome, and really embracing the success that comes your way, I think that's the biggest part, because so many people don't have an ego. We talk a lot about ego, and there's a lot of people who live with a big ego, but there's a lot of people who don't have an ego at all and live in a selfless sort of lifestyle or mindset. So it's easy to see like an ounce of success and just kind of kiss it goodbye, when really you should be embracing that. So I think that's a big piece of getting through failure, because your failure should never define you. Your crisis should never define you. Your illness and disability should never define you. It should empower you to move forward.
Yeah. So it's really about picking up the pieces, right? And, that perseverance, I think, is where a lot of people, they give up, and they say, you know what, I can't do it. And sometimes some third party can come into their lives and say, hey, listen, I believe in you. And that can give them the courage and the self-love that they might need, but a lot of the times they don't get that, right, because it's something that is required within. What would you say that power within is that we all need, that idea of, self-love or self-support? How can we tap more into that so that we can overcome failure, so that we can turn, crisis into an opportunity?
Oh, I wish I had an easy answer for you. So I am definitely not a life coach, but my biggest suggestion would be to hire somebody, like invest in yourself by hiring a life coach. Yeah, because it's easy to look at something like that as an expense, especially when you're a selfless person and you're making a selfish kind of transaction. But it really is a freeing opportunity to find that self-love and put yourself in a way, you got to put that oxygen mask on first before you can help other people. And that goes for running a successful business as well. You really need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So trust in the experts, invest in yourself. I should be paid for this. Start dropping names,
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of experts, so let's talk about your expertise, and what would you say the biggest problem that you're solving is?
So I was channeled down this road because of my inability to get hired and marking that disability box. And I realized that there was some potential there for marketing. So using my marketing and social selling background and education, I was able to create this personal brand that made me look like a mermaid in a sea of dolphins, which is really cool to see. And within 2 weeks, I had 2 job offers on the table, and I was able to really shake things up, but then teach other people what I knew. And the biggest why behind that mission was because of a lack of hope. We talked about these things. We talk about how it's easy to let fear and failure hold you back. And the leading cause of illness in patients with multiple sclerosis isn't the deterioration. It's actually deep. I'm going to hit you with it. It's actually suicide. People take their own lives because they feel like a burden. They don't want to put up with it. They can't deal with the healthcare costs. They can't deal with the broken system, which I feel like I go into a weird, crazy person there, but it really is true. And being able to reframe all of that in terms of your own personal brand and your own way that you believe in yourself and you market yourself as a professional and just as a human, that's the most freeing thing ever. So that's what I do, personal branding in a nutshell, with social media influence. And I teach people how to do all that stuff so that they can feel empowered and inspired and really rock it, so that they don't feel like a burden on society.
So This hits home. You don't even know this hits home. Actually, there's a in our family, in our extended family, there's a story that this hits home directly to. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a deep topic. It's an important topic. I love this idea of being transparent and tapping into that idea of being vulnerable of what you've been through, because what it does from my perspective is that it makes me realize this human being has a story and she has been through things. And as a result, she's learned and progressed and transcended. And this level of honesty is exactly what people want, I think. There's a lot of people out there that are selling personal branding, social. There's a handful, right? Let's admit that. But at the same time, there's not a lot of people that are going to allow us to tap into our, innermost concerns. I don't want to call them weaknesses. I want to call them, realities, maybe crises. And then that can figure out a way to turn those into storytelling, because I think at the end of the day, branding is about storytelling. So what is the process for you? Like, if you get a new client, how do you work with them? What does that look like? What's the discovery process? How do you kind of kick it off? What does that all look like?
I mean, it is a very vulnerable process because that vulnerability and authenticity works like glue. It attracts the right people and it comes them sticking to you. So it's great for building real relationships that last, not that burn and turn kind of clientele or the sales transactions that are all just sales based. It has a life of meaning and fulfillment. And I know that sounds weird and it sounds cheesy at times, but it really is. Fulfillment is something that everybody desires. Everybody wants to be happy and live the life of their dreams. And it's possible. I mean, I'm living proof that you can do it. I've been through hell and back, and I'm just helping share what I've learned too to grow forward. So how does that look with somebody? I do this visualization exercise that is just freaking remarkable. Excuse me, I get really excited when I think about it.
Right.
But it really helps me guide my client down the road of they envision their most fond memories in the form of pictures in a hallway that they imagine. And when they walk down this hallway, they need to pick off 3 of their favorite photos. There are 3 of their favorite pictures, and they take that with them and they open the door at the end of that hallway and they walk out. And then we talk about those pictures, what those memories represent, and how that holds them in a uniqueness. What is it about those memories that make them special, that tie to their heart and their vulnerability so that they can really be an authentic version of themselves and attract the right traffic as well? So I know that sounds super vague, but without having 30 minutes to guide you through like a visualization exercise, it's the best that I can do.
That was brilliant. I really appreciate that. That was totally brilliant. And then what is the regimen that one might take on their journey, on their path of building a personal brand? What are some of the ingredients that you might recommend on this journey?
Ooh, there's a lot of questions around balancing personal and professional, especially on a platform as professional as LinkedIn. But there's a way. I mean, I talk a lot about how to build a delicious recipe for success. You would never think about throwing zucchini into a bread, right? Like, who would have thought about making zucchini bread or freaking banana bread? Or I don't know, why would you throw a fruit into bread? Whatever, it's fine. If nobody likes fruitcake. But the way that you do it with a successful personal and professional brand is you are able to take those ingredients that make you who you are. So how was I able to take chronic illness, being in a biker community with motorcyclists and heavy metal, to this magical arena talking about unicorns and mermaids? There's a lot of magic that comes in building those little details through. So a regimen is talking about it all, laying it all out on the table. Build a vision board of every single flavor of your life so that you can encapsulate that into your personal brand. That's a good way to get started. And the second part would be to track with that vision board those lessons that you've learned that have shaped you into the human that you are, because those are the stories that, again, are going to attract that clientele that will help you make those sales and be successful in your career.
Can you guide me through the vision board process? The last time I went through it was about 12 to maybe 15 years ago. What's the reboot on that? What's the new digital version? Because when I did it, it was literally a paper.
Oh yeah. I mean, do the paper for sure. I mean, smack it all over your walls and get it everywhere. Get the glitter out and the ribbons, all that stuff. But you want to take the idea there is to go through your magazines, go through as much as you can, your photos, all of that jazz. Pull out those things that are the most meaningful to you in terms of where you want to be. How do you want your life to look? Do you want to be on the beach once every single year? You're probably real close to the beach. I see a surfboard in the background, but I'm in Wisconsin, the North Woods, so that's foreign to us. But making sure that you have that there, because there's a lot in terms of manifesting when you can see it and you can focus in on it regularly with routine. So vision boarding, there's so many different ways. I don't really think there is a wrong way to do it as long as you put the work in and build one that really does resonate.
Got it. And then what was the last time that you created one for yourself?
Ooh, about a year ago. It's probably time to refresh it.
That's fresh. I mean, compared to me 15 years ago almost.
Oh my goodness. But how different are you as a human than 15 years ago?
The problem with me and the last time that I did it is that I didn't have the confidence to say what I really wanted in life. You know, I felt like by putting certain things in there, whether it was career goals, financial goals, familial goals, happiness goals, I felt like I was being a little bit, self-serving, or it looked a little tacky. And now I've realized in my more mature years that sometimes we just have to say, look, this is what we want, and we want to get it. And I think where I have found my peace in this is that the more successful, the happier I can be, the more content that I can be, the more I can help others, and that's lifted me up, because everything else just felt selfish and inauthentic. And I lacked the drive because I didn't realize that my lifting myself up could thereby lift other people up, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And your business and your values and your vision changes too. Your values, not so much, but your vision will absolutely evolve as you evolve. I mean, just becoming parents is a magical experience on its own. And you change so much in terms of the way that you think of things. Like you never would have thought as a staircase as being dangerous before, There's a lot of things that shift. But that's why I suggest that these vision boards shouldn't happen every 15 years. They should happen almost annually.
Now, I'm always that guy that says, well, there's got to be a digital version of that.
There is, for sure.
So I've never Googled this, but I'm really curious. If we were to type in, web-based or digital, vision board, I'm picturing, there's a little search engine. You can find images, stock stuff. You can find celebs and fancy yachts, and you can just put it all on a board and say, look, this is what I want, and then share it on social media and say, hey guys, look, I created my vision board. Check out this cool stuff.
If it's not invented yet, you need to come up with something.
Right? That's what I was thinking. Maybe this conversation can be the catalyst to that new thing. But I'm sure it exists. But that's amazing feedback. Where can people learn more about you and your business?
Yeah. So over the last 2 years, I'm kind of green to the area of being entrepreneur. But LinkedIn, I have almost 77,000 followers over there because of the like-minded people that are interested in leveling up and being authentically themselves and being courageous enough to be authentic and vulnerable. So LinkedIn for sure, Chantel Sumas, also chantelsumas.com. That's where you can learn more. And then also my business, Stardust Creative, is our brand agency. So there's that too, stardustcreative.net.
Amazing.
I know there's a lot there.
No, that's perfect. I'm just going to put a little caption here. Make sure that there's no typos. Amazing. Well, I really appreciate this convo, and I can't wait to continue the conversation on LinkedIn and all the social platforms. One of the things that we always do with these is that we cut them up into shorter clips and we kind of start to share them. And not everyone wants to listen to a 25-minute podcast. So for that, we have, 2-minute micro podcasts that we'll create from this.
Boom.
So I can't wait to share those with you, Chantel.
Woohoo. Me too. I can't wait.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
See you later.
I'm going to go create my vision board.
Boom. Do it. Do it with your son. He'll
I
have
will.
fun.
I will. He loves glue and scissors.
Done.